I'm learning a ton of different stories from a ton of different people at different points in their lives, and it's just super interesting to like each day learn about someone new.
Hi, I'm Henry, and I'm here with Katie, and today we're going to chat recruiting. Katie, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What recruiting company do you work for, and what do you do?
I work for a recruiting agency, and with them, we run an RPO model style of recruiting. So that stands for recruitment process outsourcing, where a client will request recruiters for any like part of their process, for any specific department within their like recruiting needs, and then we fulfill those needs and are assigned to specific clients. So I actually work on site 5 days a week with my client.
So it sounds like your one client is big enough that there's enough headcounts for you to recruit for.
Yeah, so the part that they have outsourced to me specifically is sales, business development, and alliances. So I have a primary focus within that department. I actually do work on site with internal recruiters, so they do have their own recruiters, my client, but they handle more of the technical recruiting, so engineers, data scientists, that side of the business, and then I handle more of the sales side.
Got it. I'm not super familiar with the recruiting funnel. What does the funnel look like, and what are the different stages?
Typically, you get applications, so there's different sides to prospecting and inbound. So you'll get applications. Networking is super helpful, and then sourcing on LinkedIn, which is basically just going in, putting in different keywords into your search. So if I'm looking for an account executive, I'll type that in. If I'm looking for someone that's been in health or telecom or whatever it may be, you can include all of that in there, and I will source candidates from that list. Once I get responses from certain candidates, I'll talk to them first, make sure that they're a good fit for a role, make sure they're interested in the role. They'll usually talk to the hiring manager after they talk to me, and then 1 to 2 other members of the team. And then from there, we'll typically do an on-site where the candidate will have a presentation of some sort.
And what are some of the key metrics that recruiters use to track success?
Some of the big ones for recruiters are number of candidates that I submit to my hiring manager that move on through the process. Just because the main reason we're there is to filter out the good candidates, and we don't want our hiring managers talking to, X amount of candidates when we could just narrow the candidate pool for them and really save time on their calendars. And on top of that, I would say days to hire is a really big one. I think that this can depend role to role. For example, if I'm hiring someone within the C-suite, executive level, director, VP, whoever it may be, that's going to take a little bit longer to hire than maybe someone that's coming in right out of college. But just measuring each level and really trying to decrease the days to hire, I think that's an important one too.
How are recruiters generally compensated, and how do they get paid?
So it definitely varies from company to company in different types of recruiting. The way my company does it is I have a base salary, and then I make commission based on my placements, and each placement has a set amount of commission that you get for it. A lot of other agencies, they'll do percentages, so you might get a percentage of the candidate's salary that you placed. If you go internal, a lot of internal recruiters, they'll make just a base salary. So it kind of does vary, like company to company, recruiter to recruiter.
Between these different models, which model do you feel like recruiters enjoy the most or feel like they thrive the most?
It probably depends on what recruiter you talk to. I think that there's a lot of perks of internal recruiting. You feel really connected to what you're doing. You see the business grow. And I think there's not as much pressure in the time to hire because you are making a base salary and it's guaranteed no matter like what your performance is within any given month. I think if you're motivated to, go out there and hit a certain number every month, exceed your number, you want to make like a lot of money, whatever it may be, whatever your reasons are, agency recruiting and external recruiting might be more interesting to whoever that may be, just because there is the opportunity to, like, my quota is 2 placements a month, but if I get 3, I'm still getting paid on those 3. Whereas if you were internal, you would get paid the same regardless of how many placements you make.
Sounds like recruiting is almost, at least agency recruiting is similar to sales, where you're trying to get as close as many people as you can versus deals.
It's very relevant to sales where, yeah, you're getting paid out on however much you're closing. But with that, I will say you are, especially the way I recruit, I'm still very close to the company. So it's still important to build the relationships, make sure that you're placing the right person within a role. And then there's other factors to encourage, that you're hiring a quality candidate. I know for us in particular, if a candidate doesn't last more than 90 days, then we have to backfill, and then we don't get paid out on the new candidate. So there's still that, motivation to find the best person for the role, but there's also the motivation to hire quickly, you'll make more money.
What does the career trajectory look like for a recruiter?
So there's a couple different paths that someone might take. I think the natural career trajectory is to go to an account manager after being a recruiter. Some people like to be in an individual contributor role for a little bit longer, but a lot of people end up managing a team. So what that might look like is you have an account that you're the main point of contact for, but you're not necessarily on the phones every day sourcing candidates, reaching out to candidates. You're more managing the people that are and really ensuring that everything is going smoothly within the team, and your whole team's hitting their number, you're making the right hires, nothing in the process is broken. From there, you might go into like a variety of different positions, whether it be head of talent, chief people officer, that's probably the end goal, head of HR. Some people just end up going into HR in a totally different direction and kind of taking that route. But I would say a lot of people end up being like a head of talent, a chief people officer, in which you're typically running the whole umbrella of HR. Depending on the company, where you are probably managing the recruiters, the recruitment process, really ensuring that the hiring is going smoothly, but you also will probably take on a little bit of the HR, onboarding, offboarding, Paylocity, like anything that you would be using within the HR function.
How did you get into recruiting?
I have always had jobs where I'm very like customer service oriented, very people oriented, and I think coming out of college I knew that I wanted to do something where I was working directly with people, talking to people day to day. And I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do, but my friend was a recruiter, so I reached out to her and talked with her about things that she would think that I might be interested in, and she was like, we're actually hiring recruiters, you should go through our interview process. So I decided to do that. I didn't end up at that company, but that's where I got introduced to the idea of becoming a recruiter. And that's when I started researching it more, really looking into the different styles of recruiting, just getting a better idea of what the day-to-day looks like in the role. And I decided to continue interviewing at other companies, other agencies within recruiting, and finally found one that I liked.
What do you enjoy the most about recruiting and the least?
What I enjoy the most is meeting a bunch of different people. A lot of the recruiting that I do, it's not only candidates that are going to be coming into our headquarters, it's also candidates that are going to be working remotely. So they can be, anywhere from New York, Boston, Atlanta. So I'm just talking to a bunch of different people from different parts of the United States. And I mean, everyone is at different points in their career, and my job is essentially to learn their stories. So I'm learning a ton of different stories from a ton of different people at different points in their lives, and it's just super interesting to like each day learn about someone new. So it's pretty cool. As far as my least favorite thing about recruiting, I think for me, and this might be personal, I think sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to disconnect. I think that a lot of times I feel like there's always something I can be doing, whether it's answering an email, calling a candidate back, checking in with my hiring manager, checking in with my candidates, anything like at a given time I could be probably doing something. So I think just making myself kind of like step away, also do like other things with my day are important. So yeah, just being able to disconnect and not let it kind of take over your life is important.
So how many people do you talk to on any given day?
typically you're talking to around like 4, 5, 6 candidates a day.
What kind of person do you think should be a recruiter?
I think anyone that really enjoys talking to people and is a self-starter, as well as like enjoys learning new things, would enjoy recruiting. I mean, you're on the phone a lot, so that is definitely a huge part of it. But like I said, you're learning about so many different people and what their lives have been like and what they've done with their career. But there is also that motivational side of it. I think being a self-starter is definitely beneficial. A lot of what you're doing is I'm managing my day-to-day and I'm responsible for, making my placements and talking to enough candidates. So I think it is important that you have the motivation to like go out there and be successful.
For those who are interested in getting into recruiting, maybe out of college, what would you recommend?
I would recommend one, reaching out to a recruiter. I think most of us are willing to like pick up the phone and chat. I mean, that's our job. So I would definitely talk to a recruiter. That's what I did when I got into it. And I think she just gave me a lot of insight on what the day-to-day looks like. She knew me pretty well. So she kind of related it to stuff that I've done, some of my personality traits, and really looped me into why I would be a good fit for the role. But another thing that I think is super important is figuring out what style of recruiting is the best fit for you as an individual. I think that some people prefer internal, some people prefer agency, some people prefer RPO the way I do it. So I think researching all the different ways that you can be a recruiter and figuring out what works best for what you're looking for is super important too.
Cool. Thank you so much, Katie, for sharing all this information about recruiting.
Yeah, thank you for having me.